Welcome in, everybody. We just had our third DGPT Plus event of the season, being the Northwest Disc Golf Championship, and this is the final event in the US before the players go over to Europe and play a couple events there before returning. You're probably wondering to yourself, when was I ever subscribed to this channel? As I have not posted a video since August 30th of 2023. I'm trying to revive this channel and make tournament recaps, news, and stuff like that. So if that interests you and you're not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And if you already are, more content for you. So here we go. As I said, it was a DGPT Plus event, so that means that they play 4 rounds. The first 2 were at Milo McIver, and the last 2 were over at Glendoveer. You would think that they would go back and forth between each 2, Milo then Glendoveer, then Milo then Glendoveer again, but they didn't do that this time. Starting with FPO, the finish wasn't too crazy, it wasn't too shocking. We had Silva taking it down over Holland Hanley in second, and then we had Ellis middling coming in third place, which was a little bit of a shocker. This is her second podium finish on the Disc Golf Pro Tour in her career, and her last podium finish was at the 2024 Des Moines Challenge, where she came in second place. I think that this event for FPO kind of sets up for a pretty good Player of the Year race between Holland and Silva. Silva now has 3 wins on the season, 1 being a major, and Holland has 2 herself, but no major wins yet. But obviously there's a lot of season left. I just think it's going to be a really exciting battle between the two, because actually Holland is 4-3 against Silva in 2026, but then again you have to think that Silva does have less starts. She didn't play the first couple tournaments because she stayed over in Europe, but we can see that Silva's floor and her consistency overall has been better than Holland's. If you really pay attention to Holland, you can tell in some rounds she really just sprays the disc, and we don't really ever see that out of Silva. We will see her putt kind of leave her, but that's really her only Achilles heel over her bad finishes. I just feel like Holland's floor is just a little bit worse than Silva's. And when talking about putting, we do have to highlight Silva again, because in the final round, she putted 100% from circle 1, and she ended up in third place, I believe, at 94% C1 percentage for the weekend, which honestly is pretty amazing. And we can see in Silva's more dominant wins, or really just her wins in general, she's winning these tournaments when she's putting absolutely lights out. She throws the disc very consistently great every single tournament. It's just, like I said, some of those times she will let the circle 1 putts bleed out, and she's not really capitalizing on those strokes, and that's when you see other players start to creep in and win. Another thing I want to note is Holland Hanley did lead the field in circle 2 percentage at 50%, which is pretty amazing. And again, when speaking about Holland and her putting, usually this does cost her tournaments. When she's in the high pressure moments, you can tell that it really gets to her. The nerves get to her, and her brain and her hand just don't connect at all. You'll often see her hit the cage or hit band. It's just usually pretty accurate. It's just the height and the power. It's uncommitted. And I mean, I can't really knock her on it. I know I would be out there doing the same exact thing. I do it when I disc golf with my friends. So in some real quick notable finishes, I just wanted to highlight before we go over to MPO. Paige Pierce had a solid finish. She finished tied for 11th in this event. We saw her pop off at this track last year during the major, and I believe she came in top 5. I don't remember off the top of my head. She was definitely top 10, but she was in contention for sure. And then I also want to highlight Annika and Sten, back-to-back top 10s for her, which is pretty great. We can see her really become more of a threat to win events if she builds a better consistency, and honestly, these last 2 events, pretty consistent. Maybe we can see her do that throughout the year. Now, I know I left FPO kind of short, but I really do want to dive into the MPO side of this event, because the ending of this honestly felt like a tournament that you genuinely didn't know who was going to win. I mean, you can make a case for any guy on that lead card in the final day, and it honestly just felt like a tournament like Idlewild. It was just unpredictable, and it was just, honestly thought it was cinema. It was one of the better tournaments I've seen like on a final day in quite some time. But anyways, let's start at the top. Obviously, they played Milo the first 2 rounds, and after round 1, we saw Luke Taylor in the lead at 9 under par, and then you kind of had your usual guys following him right after. And we actually saw the rise once again of Eagle McMahon. Now, we know historically Eagle has had success out here in Portland and just Oregon in general. He rose to the top in round 2 and round 3, and honestly, watching him play, it just really brought me back to prime Eagle in 2021, when he was winning all those tournaments. He won 4 Disc Golf Pro Tour tournaments that year, I believe. And honestly, kind of somewhat brought me back to 2023 as well when he popped off at the European Open, had that amazing battle with Paul McBeth, and he took down another tournament that year, I believe. Now, we know that Eagle's been struggling really ever since he switched over to MVP, and ultimately you could say that ever since he got that injury to his shoulder and it took away his sidearm, that's when you could really see a dip in his game. But a lot of people recently have been starting the narrative that he's just not good with MVP discs. And that's why I think that this weekend is like extremely crucial for Eagle and for his confidence and his game overall. Because I mean, this was his first podium at an Elite Series and Major since 2024 Worlds. And that was the major, obviously. And outside of that, the last Elite Series that he podiumed at might have been 2023, honestly. And he just really needed this confidence boost because even at the Cascade Challenge the week before the Jomez event, he played well at that one too. His putt seemed amazing, especially from Circle 2 in rounds 2 and 3, and it really just kind of seemed like vintage Eagle. Like I said, this is just really huge for him, and I'm really excited to see if he can kind of build on that towards the rest of the year, and maybe even if he can do that, he can pop off and get a win. I would love to see Eagle back in the winner's circle. But with all that being said, we are just kind of going to jump right into the final round because, like I said, it was pretty much absolute cinema. So what we're going to do is we're going to slowly, somewhat go through it and just go through the series of events that led us to the finish. So everybody on the card really had a chance to win it that day. And it's like to the first 5 to 6 holes, it just seemed like nobody could even play like professional disc golf. Like putts were being missed, bad throws, dumb OB strokes, you name it, those things were happening. And you could definitely chalk that up to nerves. I know for Eagle specifically, you can chalk that up to nerves because, like I previously said, this is like the first time in a long time that he's been in contention. And I mean, he even said that in interviews too. And throughout the round, you had Eagle and Isaac really trading the lead back and forth with each other. But they never got 2 strokes up on each other. So Eagle would be up on a hole, then Isaac would be 1 stroke back. And then you would be like, okay, Eagle can really put his foot on the gas here, get another stroke, and he can just cruise for the rest of the day. But then he would just get a really bad par, and then Isaac would birdie, and all of a sudden they're tied up, and then Isaac would go birdie the next hole. And it just really seemed like at times that nobody just wanted to take advantage and win. And one thing I do want to note about Isaac is he did have a fair amount of chain outs this week. And honestly, it is a talking point because Isaac has the most chain outs of any professional disc golfer, maybe ever. I mean, if you really tapped into disc golf, you can remember his spit outs at the preserve on those Prodigy baskets. I just don't know what it is about his putt. You could argue maybe they come in a tad bit high, and that's why they bounce off the pole and just come back out at him. It just really sucks, to be honest. And he did have a Circle 2 chain out, which in retrospect would have at least put him in a playoff against Gannon, but you can't really rely on that. It's just really unfortunate, and you hate that it happens to Isaac so much. Also throughout this final round, we had Ricky Wysocki on the card, and he was turning up during this round. He surged up into the mix, and I don't think he was ever truly tied for first. He was in second place though, and it just seemed like at any moment Rick could hit that 80, 90 footer that he always does and just raptor leg it in there. And also at the same time, we had Gannon lurking. At times, especially during the first half, it never really felt like Gannon was in a position he just wasn't really making a lot of noise. He was just kind of there. He wasn't playing bad, but he also wasn't playing amazing. And you can also just never really count Gannon out. So he just knew he was there. I also did forget to mention that there was almost the momentum flip of a century on hole 12 when Ricky almost skipped it in for ace. He hit right off the front of the cage and the crowd just erupted. I could only imagine the sound that would have went off from the crowd if he actually aced that. I mean, Rick hit the front of the cage and he was jumping around like crazy and all the fans are just going nuts. It just would have been one of the biggest crowd pops in disc golf history for sure. And it was really on hole 12 that we could kind of see the writing on the wall for Eagle. He's the only one on the card to take a par on that par 3. Isaac, Gannon, and Ricky take birdie and they go on to the next hole. So it's definitely not good for Eagle. And then eventually he takes a pretty bad bogey on hole 15 or 16, I believe. He throws a forehand and it's just too high, out of bounds on the right, and it just ends up leaking out of bounds, and he doesn't make the putt. I mean, in that moment, it was a really bad throw, and it's unfortunate that it had to happen to Eagle, because personally, I was rooting for him. But now that is one competitor really out of the race. And then next, we could see the writing on the wall really for Rick. He misses a birdie putt on the 14th, a relatively easy putt for Rick's standards, especially in the clutch, which was very crucial for his finishing in this tournament. And then on hole 15, he takes the out of bounds stroke, does save the par, but at that moment, you definitely have to be birdieing, and it was really at that moment that it was just not extremely like 0% odds for Rick to win, but you could definitely tell that he was definitely out of it. And then he ended up going OB on hole 18 as well. So it's really unfortunate. But now we really just have a two-man race towards the end of the tournament. Now we're set up for another Gannon Buhr versus whoever at a tournament in crunch time. And it was against Mr. Major himself, Isaac Robinson. And what really did it for Isaac during the stretch was holes 15, 16, and 17. He took 3 straight pars to Gannon's 3 straight birdies. So that's 3 strokes right there that Gannon gains on him. And it was really unfortunate for Isaac on hole 17. He had a circle 2 bid for birdie, and it looked like he was going to go in the whole entire way. And unfortunately, it did not. And for me in that moment, that felt like the tournament, because Gannon had 2 strokes going in hole 18 where it was just, honestly, is a really soft par 5. There wasn't that many eagles, but it definitely is a hole that could be eagled by those guys. So let's stop right here and zoom back out to hole 12 through 18. Hole 12, Gannon takes his first birdie of a stretch that would end up being 7 straight birdies to close out the tournament, and he ultimately ended by 1. And in reality, if Gannon needed to, he definitely could have gone for eagle on hole 18. He was in a pretty decent spot to do it. And if there's any guy on the planet you want taking a circle 2 putt for an eagle to win a tournament, it's definitely that guy. It's pretty crazy. He started the day 4 shots behind the lead, behind Eagle McMahon. And of course, Mr. Inevitable comes through in the clutch and wins the Northwest Championship over Isaac Robinson. I mean, this is 3 wins in a row for him in this state. It's his 4th Disc Golf Pro Tour event win of the season. And an interesting fact that I didn't know is he won 6 of the last 7 Disc Golf Pro Tour Plus events. We all know that Gannon is amazing, and that honestly goes without being said. But one of the more interesting things that I find about his game is how many times he really is just going under the radar. There's a lot of events that Gannon isn't out in front necessarily, but he's kind of just right there in the middle of the pack. He's really just lurking the whole entire time. And we could see it during this tournament. I mean, I don't believe Gannon had a lead until hole 17 of this tournament. It is a 4-round tournament. He was just within striking distance. And that's really what his game is these last 2 years, is he always puts himself in striking distance. And when he needs to, he really just goes insane to challenge for these wins. And I mean, it's working for him. And now he's kind of adopting this killer gimmick we saw in his interview. And that is really terrifying for the field, to be honest. The absolute last thing that the field wants to see out of Gannon is him adopt this underdog gimmick, because if it isn't already over now, it's going to be even more over once he really adopts this persona. And honestly, this low-key reminds me of a quote from Stephen A. Smith talking about Anthony Edwards. He says, "The best player in the series is a 23-year-old with a $200 million plus contract playing like he broke." And honestly, this does pertain to Gannon Buhr, because he's making a lot of money. And if he's going to be playing like he's the underdog, like he's got nothing, it's over for the rest of the field. And lastly, as we wrap up this recap on the Northwest Disc Golf Championship, I do want to give some quick shout outs, because there was a lot of people who had some pretty good finishes this tournament. Firstly being Albert Tom. He had a top 10 finish here. Another cool highlight moment was James Conrad almost albatrossed hole 18 at Milo McIver. It tickled chains, and it would have been a holy shot 2.0, really. I mean, I don't know what it is with him and just the crazy out of this world shots, but he's just a guy. Bradley Williams was 99% from circle 1 putting on the weekend. I believe he was 67 to 68 on the weekend. That's insane. I would love to be able to do that. And just an interesting stat from this weekend was it came in birdie percentage for the event. First place in birdie percent was Anthony Barela, actually. And the guy in second place was Gannon Buhr at 49% birdie percentage. So it's just kind of crazy that the guy who ended up winning the tournament was not first in birdie percentage. What really killed AB was bogey and double bogey percentages, which were higher than Gannon's, of course. But yeah, that is going to do it for this recap of the Northwest Championship. Like I said, I'm trying to revive this channel, so if you guys want more content, I'm going to be doing mainly tournament recaps, and I might be doing videos on top of that. So subscribe if you're new. If you've been here, then we're back. Let's do it.